Hi, and welcome to the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. I'm Dupe Witherick, alcohol free wellbeing and transformational coach, and the best selling author of A Cocktail of Clarity, How to Ditch Drinking, Embody a Joyful New Identity, and Thrive Alcohol Free. This podcast will show you that being alcohol free is not what the traditional narrative says. And even though alcohol is so ingrained in our society that it is okay to give yourself permission to stop drinking if you want to. And you do not have to wait until you hit rock bottom. It is certainly not boring, and I believe ditching drinking is just the start to living an extraordinary life. By getting rid of this one thing, it allows the doors to open to endless possibilities and opportunities. Each week, we will have guests on who are at various stages of the alcohol-free journey, from those who are curious to those who have been alcohol-free for years. We will also have experts on talking about different topics relating to alcohol and beyond. Through these conversations, you will discover what it means to thrive alcohol-free. Enjoy. Hi, and welcome to the latest episode of the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. I have a wonderful guest that's going to come on in a minute. But before I go there, I hope you've had the most wonderful week. I had a great week. I was speaking at the Mind, Body, Spirit Festival in London Olympia on Sunday, and my talk was all about finding your passion in sobriety. But I talked a lot about how you're not giving up anything by taking alcohol out of your life and the impact of drinking on so many things. We touched on how alcohol exacerbates perimenopause, menopause symptoms, how it makes you brave when you stop drinking, it gives you a superpower. And then we talked about how do you find passions? How do you go back to things you maybe liked doing as a child, or how do you find new passions and actually step into the confidence of trying those? And it was great to just meet people in person, and there were people at various stages of the alcohol-free journey. There were people that were obviously thinking about ditching drinking, but then were worried about navigating their relationships and getting on with it in social events and not being left out. And so we had some really good conversations, and it was lots of fun. I actually gave people a guide, which was 30 ways to feel more alive without alcohol. So I'd love to give that to you if that's something that you would like to get hold of. Then I put the link below and you can grab that guide. It's got some really great ideas in terms of how you can find other things. It's all about building healthier habits. It's finding new things that means that you don't need to reach for that drink automatically. And so if that's something you're interested in, then go and grab that guide, and I'd love to hear how you get on with it. The other thing I've realized is that we are a week away from the Finding Freedom retreat. So we started the WhatsApp group about a week ago, and it's been so exciting. The ladies are getting really excited. Yesterday we were talking about eSIMs and compression socks and having a giggle about that. It's quite a long flight, so we all obviously want to be prepared. And when we get into Bali, we still want to be able to access people. And so that was a fun conversation. We talked about plugs, we talked about various things, but a lot of the things that they asked about, we're going to give them a plug, we're going to give them a sarong. So when they go to the temples, they have something already. There are lots of surprise goodies that we'll also be giving away on the retreat. And I just can't wait to see the ladies. And I know that the women that arrive and land on Thursday from their plane trip to Bali will not go home the same. And they, by the time they leave, they will have fully embodied their future selves, the woman that's waiting for them, and they will be changed forever and no doubt be able to thrive in 2025. So I am excited for that, and I will be keeping you updated. I'm sure I will do an specific episode on the retreat as well when I'm back. But if you want to follow along on Instagram at Thrive Alcohol Free, I will no doubt be posting about it as we go through the week. And if you are in Bali and would like to maybe join us for a day or two, then that's also possible. You can join us for one of the excursions or the activities and the coaching and the daily yoga and the women's circle. So if you are in Bali already, then feel free to reach out to me and we can organise that. And if you are feeling really spontaneous and you are able to make barley. And maybe you've been hearing about barley, and every time your stomach's been fluttering and you've been thinking, oh, I really want to do it. Well, if you can make it happen, you can still come. So get in touch with me, DM me at Thrive Alcohol Free, DM the world with the word retreat, and we'll make this happen for you. And I can't wait to see all the ladies who've already signed up and give you the biggest hug. Okay, so today's episode is with Kristin Horstman. And Kristin is a certified grey area drinking master coach. She's a health coach, she's a speaker, a blogger, she's a zero proof experiences facilitator and a family support advocate dedicated to helping individuals and families navigate challenges related to alcohol use and anxiety. Since beginning her own sobriety journey in January 2021, Kristin has empowered others to overcome obstacles and create healthier, more fulfilling lives. Guided by her mantra, for years I drank alcohol in the grey area, but my forever decision to stop is very black and white. Her coaching focuses on building self-regulation techniques to heal and nourish the nervous system, helping clients regain balance, resilience, and clarity in their lives. So we have a fab conversation. Kristin's amazing. She's got really good energy and she's just a delight to be around. She really just makes you smile. And so I'm sure you'll see that will come across in the episode. We also did a live recently. So if you want to watch our Instagram live, then head to my page at Thrive Alcohol Free and you can watch the live that we did as well if you want more of Kristin. And so without further ado, here is the episode with lovely to have you on the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. How are you, my dear?
Hi, thank you so much, Dupe. I'm so excited to be talking to you today on your podcast. Yay.
It's wonderful to have you here. So maybe for people who might not know you, but we did do an Instagram live recently. And so people should also go and check that out if they haven't on both our pages, and we'll get to that. But to people that might not know your wonderful sunny energy and who you are, maybe let's do a bit of an introduction. Who are you and what brings you to the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast? And we'll go from there.
Sure. I'm Kristin Horstman. I'm a gray area drinking coach, and I live in Scottsdale, Arizona with my wonderful husband, who I had fell in love with over 27 years ago, which is wild to say. And we have a cute little fur baby, a little Aurora. She's a golden retriever. And yeah, so my journey really was a client to coach journey. So back in 2018, 19, I was really struggling with my drinking and I was trying all the things. And I spent years trying to figure out this puzzle. And of course, in the beginning, I didn't want to stop drinking. I was really having a hard time letting go. But eventually, I got to this place where I did want to stop. And so many of the things I was doing, it was helping me along the way, but I was really missing something. And I realized right towards the end, right around that last day one that I had on January 1st, 2021, it clicked that it was really the cravings that kept bringing me back to alcohol. And I had this day one where in 2020 was probably the most successful year of the years that I struggled, because I was actually able to string together some days, some weeks, and even a couple of months of sobriety, which was huge because I wasn't able to really accomplish that in 2018 and 2019. But I was still white knuckling it. And now I can reflect back too. And I was also reaching for sugar a lot because I gained some weight that for those, there was a string of months from August to November where I was actually successful at not drinking. And I realized I was turning to sugar and things like that. And then I had this right around the holidays at the end of 2020, I kind of talked myself into drinking again. And I was going through some things and I was telling myself it's not that bad. And then, I went from 0 to 100 very quickly because the next thing you know, I'm sneaking alcohol into the house. And then on January 1st, 2021, we were home and I started drinking during the day. And all of a sudden, I passed out on a chair on the back patio. And my husband is waking me up. And what happened? And he's like, yeah, what happened? And I was like, oh my God. And then that night, as the alcohol was leaving my body, that's when everything clicked for me. And I said, oh, I'm done. I'm done. I need the permanent solution now because I've tried these things. I've tried so many things for years. Nothing's helping. And I realized it was the cravings. And I had been following amazing people in sobriety space, such as Annie Grace, Laura McCowan, and Jolene Park. And I went back to all their websites for the next couple of days, that early week in January. And something about Jolene's website really spoke to me. She was talking about the missing physiological pieces to heal cravings in the brain and to help with anxiety and rewired your stress response. And I was like, wow, that's really interesting. That is something no one else is really talking about. And it just spoke to me because I realized that was me. There was so much resonance. So I booked a discovery call with her within a couple of days. And as soon as we were on that Zoom call, I was like, wow, this woman's going to change my life. And she did. And we started working together and we were just off to the races and everything changed and transformed in such a positive way pretty quickly, actually. And it was remarkable.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
isn't it amazing? I think people that are listening and will come on to family and friends, but with this sort of thing, you have to do it on your own. It has to be your decision. And isn't that interesting that it just clicked one day and you were like, right, I'm done and I'm ready to really do this properly. But no one could have told you that. Your husband couldn't have told you that. Friends couldn't have told you that. We have to come to that conclusion on our own. And so when you sort of stopped at that point, and you obviously said you tried quite a bit, obviously between 2018 and 2020, what was
Yeah.
different this time then?
Yeah, it was interesting because in 2017, actually, my drinking started to really escalate. And I started to like all of a sudden, we were like in a perfect storm of chaos. There was so much drama happening that year, and there was a lot of overwhelm. And then we also we had so many friends that were heavy drinkers, and then we kind of made some newer friends that were heavy drinkers. So it just seemed like my entire social network, everybody wanted to drink. And so drinking, it just increased more and more. And then throw in a lot of these kind of chaotic, overwhelming situations into the mix. And then it was like I kept tying it to the anxiety that I was feeling from all the overwhelm. And then my stomach started to really hurt. And I was actually diagnosed with gastritis that year. But then in early 2018, I will never forget this night for as long as I live. I spent an entire night puking up bile on my toilet. And I couldn't leave the toilet for more than 30 seconds. I'm serious, the whole night. And I was like, I just want to like rest. Can we just stop this? And it was so painful. And it was bile because I didn't really have any food in my stomach because I really had so much trouble eating and I was just nauseous regularly. And then I got my blood tested and my liver enzymes were like through the roof. And it was pretty scary. So then I tried to just white knuckle I tried to take a couple of weeks off of drinking, but I was white knuckling it like crazy. And I just thought, okay, if I just take a few weeks off, everything will be fine. I can go back to drinking because I was the one who was like leading the parties. I was the one, we built a bar in our house. I mean, we were constantly like hosting, and I was the one arranging the brewery tastings or the wine tastings or the wine dinners. So to me back then, it was such an important thing in my life that my whole life, it seemed like at that point was revolving around alcohol. When can we go out with the next person or the next event to go drinking? And it's just wild to me that happened, but I really couldn't let go. So in 2018, it was such an up and down, and I had no desire to stop at all, period. Even though I had that horrific night on the toilet, I just didn't want to stop. And so I did go to a couple of AA meetings, but I was kind of nudged to, you could say. And to your point, I didn't want to go. And so I didn't really get anything out of it. And nothing was resonating with me at all at that point. So it just wasn't working. And then in 2019, time was going by and I was still struggling. And I was just craving alcohol like day and night. I mean, I was drinking in the morning, which was wild to me. And it was like my logical brain, I couldn't put words to this back then, but my logical brain would see me like wanting to drink in the morning. And I was like, this is just wrong. My whole body was like, this is not okay. But then as soon as I would take that drink, it would kind of quell all that anxiety because I was just a big ball of anxiety and depression. And then it would make me feel better. And so that's the rub, right? Because a lot of the times when we're struggling with a substance that we can't stop consuming, there's ambivalence there. So ambivalence is like carrying two opposing ideas that are both true at the same time, where I knew that alcohol was destroying me and it was a really bad thing to crave it all day and to revolve my life around it. and to want to keep drinking, even though I was so ill all the time. But yeah, I couldn't stop. I was still getting something positive out of it because at that point, it was one of the only things that I was reaching for to make me feel better. So it was just a difficult place to live. And then in 2019, right in the middle of that year, again, the overwhelm and the chaos that was kept coming up in my life, it was just bizarre. Like all these weird things were happening. And it got to the point where I had suicidal ideation that had been building, but it was more passive. But then in the summer of 2019, there were some things that were going on and it flipped to active where I actually wanted to hurt myself. And I actually did try to hurt myself one day. But thank God I didn't cause any permanent damage. It was more of a cry for help, but it was kind of a wake up call. So it's almost a good thing that that happened because then I really started to realize, okay, I need help. And there was something about a traditional rehab setting that did not appeal to me. So I was like, okay. So the day after I tried to hurt myself, I thought, okay, I got to do something. So I threw myself into research and I scoured the internet. And I actually found something. I found a 30-day program that was inpatient, but it was a different kind of spin on traditional rehab model because they were using spiritual psychology and it was actually a dual diagnosis place. So basically, this husband and wife in the beautiful state of Washington, right off the coast, there's these little islands called the San Juan Islands. So this husband and wife, they bought a farm and then they started their own dual diagnosis center. So what was so different about them was that they only took cohorts of up to 10 people at a time. And you started and ended on the same day. So you truly felt like you were just this like small group working together. And there was a lot of dignity with their program. I could see on their website, they were talking about how you get your own bedroom, your own bathroom. Every other day, you'll have access to your phone just for an hour, just so you can contact your family and feel like you can still be connected. And then just the program itself, like learning about spiritual psychology, like it checked every good box. I was like, wow, this place sounds so interesting. I was on the phone with them right away. And I was like, when does your next program start? And I'm like, I want in. And within a couple of weeks, so yeah, we have an opening in a couple of weeks. We're going to start a new program with a new cohort. And I was like, sign me up. And when I got there, my wonderful husband came and he was so supportive during this harrowing journey. So he came with me. You're allowed to bring your loved one on the first day, but then by dinner time, they had to leave. So we're taking a tour of the beautiful grounds. I mean, it was July in the state of Washington, which I mean, it doesn't get more idyllic. And so we're walking around and I was actually really excited. And then I had to say goodbye to him right at dinner time. And now I go to join the group and they're all looking at me and they're like, you're with us? Like, you don't like work here? You're in the program? I'm like, I'm in the program, baby. I'm ready to heal. Let's go. And it was such a positive experience. It truly was. I really thrived there and I did so much good, deep work. There was group therapy, there was one on one therapy, there was a lot of time in nature, there was art, we read books. It was just absolutely incredible. So my mental health really just changed for the better at that place. And I never, ever wanted to hurt myself ever again to this day. So that was such a positive. However, a couple of months after I left, I had a really bad relapse because there was some overwhelm that happened again, and I struggled to handle it. And I didn't realize it, but the cravings to alcohol were still there because spiritual psychology, that's more of a cognitive piece. And what I didn't know at the time, and that is really what is the difference with gray area drinking, coaching, focusing on the nervous system, is that, the animal brain, where the cravings are coming from, 80% of those cravings are coming from the body, not the cognitive mind. But I just didn't know that back then. So it kind of makes sense why I struggled with alcohol for another year and a half, even after I went to that wonderful program that had helped me so much. But at least it really did set me on a good path. And then a couple of months after that program, some really positive things happened. And again, I have to credit my husband because he actually found Annie Grace's book. And because I kept trying those AA meetings, but again, nothing against AA. It just really wasn't resonating with me. It just wasn't helping me. So we're like, okay, what else is out there? Somebody else has got to be doing something. So he threw himself into research to help me with this. And he found Andy Grace's book. And as soon as I started reading that book, I swear, a few pages in, I thought, wow, this is so interesting. Because she was talking about the neuroscience and what alcohol does to the brain. And nobody was talking about that. And I'm a science geek. So if you tell me how something works and the science behind it, I'm going to be like, oh, wow, that's so interesting. And that makes so much sense. So really, she started to really lift that shame away because the shame that I had was absolutely debilitating. And so that was so helpful. And then it was like all of a sudden, it was like this ripple effect. So I found Annie, then I found Jolene Park's TED Talk like immediately after. And I loved her TED Talk talking about gray area drinking and the nervous system. And then I started to find all these wonderful sobriety influencers on Instagram. So then I just started to really find all these people who were talking about something different. And then the other thing that happened at the end of 2019, again, I have to credit my husband. I love dogs, and we both actually grew up with dogs, but I'm like a dog freak. I'm that girl. If you're walking your dog down the street and I spot you, I will run over and pet that dog. I'm that crazy girl who has to pet every dog. But we haven't had a dog as adults. We both grew up with them as kids. And he said to me, he's like, "You want to get a puppy? I found a puppy." And I'm like, "You found a puppy for us?" I'm like, "Okay." So just even the idea, the anticipation that we were getting a dog was amazing. And it's like created this little spark in me and really started to lift my mood. And we decided that we would bring her home in January of 2020, which is really funny, so that she would come to us and be 6 months old. And where she was coming from, they would do some basic training, which was really helpful at that point because I was struggling. So to have to worry about a new puppy and everything and do the basics, it was so nice that they were taking care of that. So in January of 2020, we got the puppy, and I will never forget that day either. When she came, I have this wonderful picture of that night where Evan captured this picture of me hugging her and the joy and the love. And you could see the oxytocin, that love chemical flowing between me and this new puppy that was entering our home. And you can look at that picture and go, oh, her life's about to change for the good. And so that was huge. Like focusing on her, having something to take care of, and so I didn't have to wallow in my own misery was gigantic. And then I didn't want to drink around her. She actually motivated me to not want to drink because I did grow up with a dog. I know that they really read your emotions. And I didn't want to scare her and I didn't want to put her in harm's way because I mean, when I drank, I was blacking out and I was causing all kinds of chaos. I had all kinds of bruises, I didn't know where they came from and things like that. So that was so helpful. And then that very same month, I found, and again, see, this came from me. I did the research. I found a great therapist, and I find because I've been looking for the right therapist locally for years. And so I found this wonderful therapist. So I threw myself into that. And I was doing some one-on-one therapy. I was doing some couples therapy too, which was really helpful because Evan and I had really been through the ringer. It was so tough in our relationship when I was in such a dark place. So that was really helpful too. We just learned new skills and it was amazing. And those new skills really resonated with us. And they were teaching me DBT skills, which is dialectical behavior therapy. And again, I couldn't put words to this back then or really know the connection, but it's like taking CBT, but really stepping it up. And CBT is, for people who don't know, cognitive behavioral therapy. There's actually some physiology, some body work mixed in with DBT. So learning those skills, those were really clicking. And then my therapist was so smart. She put together a women's processing group. And so she just took four of us, four of her patients, and she said, oh, I think these women would be wonderful in a group together and get so much out of it. So we got to get that small group connection. So I had a sense of community because, like I said, it wasn't really resonating. And I really do believe community is so important. So now I'm getting community from this small group. And then when shutdown happened, that was the best thing ever because now I'm just in a bubble where I get to I'm like, wait, you're telling me I just get to stay home with my loving husband and my puppy. And the weather was so nice in March of 2020 in Arizona. So I'm just like walking my dog nonstop because what else are you going to do around that time? And then the therapy, they just seamlessly switched to Zoom. And then what really helped with shutdown was the FOMO piece because like I said, again, going back to the social piece, my social network revolved around drinking. So before the pandemic, for those really difficult years, my friends, they didn't really know how to handle me, right? Which is understandable because they would invite me out, whether it was lunch or dinner or something, and I would go out with them, but they would all be throwing back their wine like it was no big deal. And I'd be drinking like iced tea in the corner, just feeling like a loser. Mocktails weren't really as big back then in 18 and 19. So I felt like really different from the group. I felt like, gosh, they can all just throw back wine and I can't. And I'm being told I'm not allowed to drink anymore. And a lot of those times when I would go out with them, even for lunch, I would sneak myself to the bar and I would ask the bartender for a couple of shots. And it was always a disaster the other thing that would happen, then they thought, okay, maybe it's better if we don't invite her to come out with us. But then I would sit at home feeling like a loser. And then I had to see all the wonderful Facebook pictures of them hanging out, having a great time. But then when shutdown happened, it was like, oh, nobody's going out. I don't have to miss out on anything. So it
Mm.
was so, so helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Gosh, okay. Lots there.
Yeah.
I'm just thank you so much for sharing. I wonder though, obviously shutdown helped a lot, but that was March 2020, but you eventually stopped January 21. So
Yep. Yep.
what happened between that time?
Yeah. So fortunately, it really was a successful year. Like I said, like of
Hmm.
all those years that I struggled, because I was away from my heavy drinking friends and because we weren't physically going out to bars, we didn't have alcohol in the home. We had dumped all the alcohol. So at that point, it was really hard for me to get alcohol in the home. But there were opportunities, even though it was 2020, you could still put a mask on and run to a store to right to get a grocery store or even a Walgreens,
Hmm.
because in
Hmm.
Arizona they sell alcohol everywhere, even in Walgreens. So I was still able to sneak it here and there, but it was really great. I did have a good run, but a couple of things happened that year that created a lot of overwhelm. And it seemed, and again, there's this theme. Every time I would get really overwhelmed, I would just turn to alcohol again. So I definitely had relapses that year, but the good news is that they were less and they were less severe. So I could like recover quicker that year. And then in the summer, August of 2020, there was some kind of shift because I had a really bad relapse right in the middle of June. And that one was tough. That went on for a few days. And then after that, I really was like, okay, I'm going to try really hard. And I remember that summer I started to really be successful and I was able to really stay away from alcohol, but I was white knuckling it. So 100%. That was the problem. The animal brain, the body, the cravings were still present. They hadn't gone away. So it was like this force that almost seemed greater than me, pulling me back. And it was always tied to feeling triggered or overwhelmed or anxious. So, yeah, unfortunately, I did cave a bunch of times that year, but I was still able to white knuckle my way through a few months. And then in October, though, I realized that I had been reaching for sugar a lot in like August and September. And we were selling a house at that time. So that was part of the overwhelm. And I remember reaching for sugar a lot. And then in October, I was like, you know what? I want to go on a bit of a cleanse. So there had been a diet that I'd done a few times over the years that was really clean eating. You drink a lot of water, there's no alcohol on it, and it's just a lot of basic lean proteins and fruits and vegetables. So I actually did that in October and that was really great. So then I was like losing weight and I was eating so clean and I was feeling amazing. But then in November, I went through overwhelm again. I had been part of a nonprofit organization for 5 years at that point. And I was a volunteer, but I threw myself like totally in and I made it basically my full-time job and my purpose. But I realized that it wasn't a healthy environment for me anymore to be involved with that charity. So I had the courage to resign, which was really, really, really hard on me because I just felt like if I resign from this charity, what's my identity? What am I going to tell people I do? And then who am I to leave a charity hanging? That's just wrong. But fortunately, I had some people in my life that were helping me and giving me the courage to, be like, no, you gave 5 years of your life. Like, it's okay. You're allowed to move on. So I resigned, which was such a positive, but I really had to mourn that loss. And it was really hard for me. So I started to feel really bad at the end of November and I started to reach for alcohol just a tiny bit here and there. But then really fast forward to Christmas week. And that's when I really started to be like, oh, it's the holidays and I'm fine. My problem wasn't that bad. So I talked myself back into drinking. Oh, one positive thing though that I'll say. So after I left that nonprofit, the great thing was that by letting go of that, by taking that out, it opened all this space for me to start to think about, well, I've been helping other people with their dreams. What does Kristin want to do? And before I found that charity, I had spent years really diving into health and wellness of all things. I had taken a lot of healthy cooking classes, a lot of classes on nutrition. I had even gone around and taught some cooking demos in local like yoga studios and running stores. But I stopped all that once I got involved with the charity. So I thought, okay, can I get myself back to those roots of my love of health and wellness? So I went on IIN's website, Institute for Integrative Nutrition, which is a health coaching school. And I had been following them. They'd always been just in the background. So I just decided to pull up their website. And I didn't really understand what health coaching was necessarily, but the curriculum looked amazing. Everything about it, I was like, this program sounds just wonderful. And I happened to just casually mention to my husband that I was poking around this website. And he was like, so you enrolled, right? And I was like, oh, I should enroll? Oh, okay. I was like, oh, okay. So I jumped on the computer and enrolled in early December of 2020, but classes weren't going to start until kind of mid to end of January. So I enrolled, but nothing really happened yet. So then on just January 1st, when I had that moment of just passing out like that, it was so jarring. And what was nice, the positive was that I had had such an extended break. So I had had a contrast finally. Whereas in 2017, 18, and 19, it was just like drinking nonstop. But then when you start to actually take breaks and step away, then you can actually compare what is it like with drinking, what is life like without it. So to realize that, okay, well, time isn't the answer. And if you take a bunch of months off, tell yourself, it's not that bad. And then all of a sudden you pass out in a chair in broad daylight on your back patio, clearly something's wrong there. And I needed that final day one to be like, okay, I am done. Like, what am I going to do? And yeah, so I hired Jolene within days, like I said. And then a couple of weeks later, then health coaching school started. And it was so fascinating being coached in real time as a client by someone who's been doing it for years. She's a professional. And then to learn about coaching in school and to learn kind of the behind the scenes, I was like, wow, I just loved it. And all of that was lighting me up every single day. And I truly loved it. So, and then a couple of months into working with Jolene, she said to me, she said, a year from now, you will have graduated from health coaching school and you'll also have a year of sobriety. And she kind of like winked and I was like, whoa, a year? That was like mind blowing back then. You will qualify to take my training for gray area drinking coaches because in order to take her program, you have to have at least kind of a base coaching certification. It can be anything, it can be health coaching, life coaching, business coaching, whatever. So I kind of call it like coaching schools, the bachelor's degree. She's the master's in the US. She's that advanced program. So I thought, wow, okay. And I love that she put that little carrot out there because it just gave me this goal of thinking, having something exciting to think about for the future. And it was almost like I blinked and that year went by. And so then in January of 2022, I was like, okay, I'm ready. Let's do it. And it was so neat to be in her program because I was like, wow, I literally was a client going through this program. And now to learn the behind the scenes, the coaching side, it just was so amazing. And I was like, I love this work. I truly do. And I'm the proof, right? I'm living proof of how amazing this program is. And then I got to just witness all these changes in myself. When things got hard, I didn't want to reach for alcohol anymore. Basically, with the gray area drinking program, you get this daily accountability. So every single day, I had to check in with Jolene, write her an email, and let her know what I was noticing in my body, right? Because body first, that is how it works. Was I feeling cravings? Was I feeling anxiety? Was I feeling fatigued? And then I would use a resource to change that state. So if I felt anxious, okay, do I want to go for a walk? Do I want to do a breathing exercise? Because when we drink alcohol, we're drinking alcohol because we want to change the state we're in. So now, if we start replacing it with really positive somatic tools, soma means body, then we can start to rewire that stress response. Because reaching for alcohol was so automatic for years. So this program helps you create a new neural pathway in your brain so that you start petting your dog or going for the walk or chasing a sunset or doing a breathing exercise instead. That becomes the automatic. And I just noticed that, first of all, a lot of that chaos that I was referring to that was going on for years and years and years just went away. And I don't think that's a coincidence. But when things did get hard, when I was dealing with stress, it was so automatic for me to want to reach for taking that walk with the dog. And if I had to enlist a few tools at once where it's, okay, I got the dog, I'm walking, so I'm moving my body, I'm in nature. And then I had like a very specific playlist I would listen to. And then sometimes on a really tough day, I would do all of that and ugly cry. And I would literally walk around my neighborhood like ugly crying because I was physically getting those emotions out. So I'd put that in my check-in. And then Jolene would be like, Great, good. That's amazing. Like everything you're doing, emotions are energy in motion, and you need to move them out because they can get stuck inside. So you have to physically move them out. So doing all those things was helping me to move those emotions out.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a lot of the work that I do as well. And I don't know if you do EFT tapping, but that's a
Yeah,
really great tool to really release those emotions in the moment,
perfect
which is
example.
fantastic. So you've talked a lot about anxiety, overwhelm, stress. I think a lot of people listen, someone who's listening is potentially not stopping drinking because they think that it's actually helping, but we know that alcohol actually exacerbates that anxiety, stress, depression. And so I wonder, as you've been going on this journey, I know one of the lovely things you do is every day you watch the sunsets, and that's become a thing for you. But I absolutely agree
Yes.
with the whole finding other things, because really, when we reach for that glass, it's a feeling we're trying to create or a feeling we're trying to escape from. That's effectively what we're doing when we're reaching for the glass. So, what can we do differently? So, I'd love to hear a bit more about obviously what has happened since and all the good work you're doing now and the emotional side and the nervous system regulation. But before we go there, why don't we touch a bit on your love of sunsets? I'd love to talk about that.
Yes, yes. So I realized that first year of working with Jolene and of not drinking in 2021, that every single night it seemed like I was just gravitating towards watching the sunset. And then a few months in, I made this connection like, wow, every night, this is what I want to do. I want to be present. I want to watch those amazing colors in the sky. And it was lighting me up. And I would get giddy watching the sunset, believe it or not. And I realized that, wow, chasing sunsets, that's become my new happy hour. I was the ultimate
Mm.
happy hour girl. So it's so interesting because then I actually learned the science. There's actual science behind why I was gravitated towards those sunsets. One thing that I've learned through all of my training and my client work as well is that the nervous system it naturally wants to downshift during that time, during that 4 to 7 p.m. time. So all day long, we go, 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 right? Whether you're working at a job or taking care of children, whatever you do, like that 9 to 5, you're doing a lot of output. But when the sun goes down, we have this circadian biology. We have that clock inside of us that says, okay, the sun is going down. It is actually time for us to downshift. Then it wants the nervous system truly wants some nourishment, some regulation at that time. But unfortunately, in our society, we've created happy hour. So many people are drinking during that time. So it's just so fascinating that I was able to really switch that to chasing my sunsets, wanting to be present, wanting to enjoy those beautiful colors. So it just became a thing. And I actually trademarked that phrase now because it has become such a huge part of my identity was chasing those sunsets. But for people, it doesn't have to be chasing a sunset at that time. I would encourage, and this goes along with my client work, when I help my clients, we go on a curiosity journey. I want them to try lots of different tools with me because they need to find out what's going to resonate with their nervous system because every nervous system is different. And just because I fell in love with chasing sunsets at that time, it doesn't mean that everybody will. Maybe some other person might want to journal during that time, or maybe do some painting, or read their favorite book, or maybe they want to cook a lovely meal, or maybe they want to create a beautiful mocktail. It's this beautiful curiosity journey of figuring out what do you notice, going back to the word notice that I used earlier, because you want to try these resources. You want to notice, first of all, that you're having a craving or anxiety, which is a skill that you have to practice because a lot of us are on autopilot and we have no clue. And then we just kind of do that automatic reaction. So even noticing that that's happening, it brings on nervous system regulation and it buys you time. It buys you time so that you can respond instead of react. Those are very different ways to live. So if you have those few extra seconds, then you can think, oh, okay, I'm feeling a craving or I'm feeling dysregulated or I'm a little stressed out. I don't have to just automatically reach for alcohol. I can just quickly ground my feet and just recognize where my feet are. Or I can go pet my dog really quick, or I can just step outside and get a nice little dose of sunlight. So it's just noticing those things. And yeah, there's so many wonderful tools out there. And it's actually really fun to treat it like a curiosity experiment, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. This is absolutely an experiment. If you go in thinking it's an experiment, let me be curious, it makes it a lot better, because I think a lot of people also, and someone who's listening now who's thinking, oh, I want to try it, but then there's this whole sense that it has to be forever. They have to stop drinking forever. And that's a really
Right.
challenging thing for the brain, because obviously the brain is trying to keep you safe and you're running on the subconscious mind 95% of the time. And so it's doing what it's always done. And so you have to then consciously, as you say, change your neural pathways with the different activities that you talked about. But
Yes.
I think
100%.
people, yeah, but people sit there and think, well, how do I do this really? How do I not look at it as forever? And I think the way that you described it as being curious, looking at it as an experiment, is just the best way to do it, because otherwise you can get really caught up in all the other things, which then make you freeze as opposed to actually take the action.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, the forever question comes up a lot in my coaching work. And it comes up kind of usually around like week 2 or 3, which is so funny. It's like
Mm.
almost every single time. That's how it works. And I always say, do not worry about forever.
Yeah.
You know what? You're working with me for 1, 2, or 3 months. Just worry about you're in a container and you've got me. And I'm literally walking with you hand in hand every single day. It's not like we meet once a week and then I'm like, okay, go off and have a great week and I'll see you next week. Yeah, we meet once a week on Zoom, but we also have that daily connection. They're writing that email. I'm replying. I am reading that email and I'm letting them know I am here for you. I am cheering you on. And it's just one of those things where when they worry about the forever question, I say, listen, worrying about forever, it's a daunting concept no matter what the forever is, right? It
Yeah.
could be giving up sugar or something like that. Don't worry about forever. That's why put that
Mm.
stress on yourself. Just worry about right now, because then you start adding up day after day after day. I have so many clients who maybe start with a month and then they wind up adding on. And it's because every single day they start to feel so much better. That anxiety starts going away, the cravings start going away, and they're like, I want to keep feeling this good. And so it's just so funny, but you have to walk this experience. Like I can talk to your prefrontal cortex all day, but until your animal brain, which is back here, feels soothed, it's really hard for people to grasp that. So it's really doing it every single day. And again, the proof is in the pudding. Like once you start doing it, you start to see the results. So when I share my journey, whether it's on social media or my blogs, I just show people how I've really elevated my life without alcohol. This is a judgment-free zone, and I'm not here to wag my finger at anyone and tell them that they can or can't drink. It's like this is what I'm doing. And if you're curious and want to live this elevated life that I've been living, and we can figure out what that means for you, come on board. Let's have that discovery call. Let's start using the nervous system tools. And why not, right? If you've been trying things for years and it's not working, why not try something different?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And the other thing I just wanted to pick up on was your husband. He sounds amazing. So did he not drink at all then? Or has he stopped because of you or cut down because of you?
Yeah, great question. So, fortunately, he was never really a big drinker. His family didn't drink, it was never important. We drank a little in college, like the typical college, but not really a heavy partier at all. But then, quickly after college, we moved to Arizona and he started a business with his brother. And he was so dedicated to that business. He worked 7 days a week, really long hours for the better part of a decade. So, I mean, he didn't have time to eat or sleep. So, like drinking, that was like the last thing he wanted. So he loved his work so much that he wanted to be sharp and as focused as possible. Of course, while he was working on the weekends, I was partying or I was making dinner and having that glass of wine. But it's interesting because when he sold that company, and then all of a sudden he had a lot of free time, and that was leading up to 2016 and 2017. So he started drinking during that time. There was some things going on. He made a lot of new friends, which they're lovely people, but they do happen to be heavy drinkers. So it wasn't just me who was a weekend party girl or maybe the glass of wine with dinner. It was like, oh, he's drinking too. And now we're both doing this nightly, like, oh, let's go to dinner with this person and order a bottle of wine, and let's go to happy hour, or let's go to the local brewery that's right around the corner. So he started to drink a little bit more during that time. And then I started to just keep drinking. But when he saw that alcohol was literally destroying me, he was so just put off by it. And he took that step back and said, okay, I'm good. I'm good. So I stopped, like I said, January 1st, 2021. I think about 6 months later, he literally had one beer with some friends, only because he was in a social situation. Everyone ordered a beer, so he ordered the one beer, and he just had the one, and he didn't think much of it. And then I think 6 months later, he same thing happened where he had literally just one beer. And then he thought, why would I just have one beer every 6 months? What's the point? And honestly, like I said, he was so turned off by it, so he was able to just wash his hands of it and walk away. And, the big difference is that he hadn't spent years and years and years and years drinking. And he
Mm,
hadn't spent enough time like tying it to emotions. Because once you
mm,
start tying alcohol to emotions, that's big trouble, because
mm,
then your brain just gets used to that. So then when you suddenly take the alcohol out, if you've been doing that over and over and over, then your brain, it feels that imbalance because it's used to getting that hit of alcohol to help you regulate. And then you suddenly just take it away. If you don't start replacing it with these other nervous system tools, that's when you're going to feel the cravings. That's when you're going to be white knuckling it. And that is so much misery. I mean, those years that I had those severe cravings were the most miserable years of my entire life, hands down. And I don't wish that on my worst enemy, to have that feeling. So I am so grateful that he never ever had to experience that so that he could just walk away from it. So it's
yeah.
just wonderful. We have this relationship where there's just no drinking and we have so much fun together. Every day
Yeah.
we're doing fun things and connecting, and it's the little things too. Like we've talked about before, we go for our nightly walks with the dog.
Mm,
Our whole day was planned around, okay, well, what time are we going to do the walk? We're doing it at
yeah.
sunset. Are we going to do it a little before, a little after? Oh, I have this thing I want to go to. Okay, every single day. It's become our norm now. And those walks are my favorite time of the whole day.
So good, so good. And so you've gone on to actually help other families, though, based on the fact that your husband obviously saw how much you struggled, and then you were thinking, right, I want to give back. So why don't you tell us a bit about what
Yes.
you've done now?
Yes, actually, too. And about 2 years into my journey, I had some family members that they were drinking, and it led to something like a bit of a physical altercation. And there was one of them got hurt, and that was so jarring for me to see people I love like go through that, and to again just see the negative effects of alcohol. And I realized, like, wow, that's when it started to really click. Okay, the drinking in my family, like that really had an impact on me. And I was making this journey all about me, and I realized there's a family piece here. And then of course, but really obviously, like Evan, my husband, getting him support, that was a really big overriding factor too. Because when I was struggling, both of us, we were kind of clueless. We didn't understand like addiction. We had no clue. And why couldn't I stop? We were just both confused about that. And he felt like I kept putting myself in harm's way. He was so scared to leave me a lot. He was like, I can't even leave the house to go to, let's say, an Al-Anon meeting or something like that, because I kept putting myself in a lot of danger. And so he just put so much focus on me, but he was so loving and so supportive. But he really did suffer during that time. And then by coincidence, right around that time, those 2 years in with that family piece, I accidentally came across this wonderful nonprofit called CMC Foundation for Change. And they have created an evidence-based program for family members and loved ones that where they provide evidence-based tools for change, so that for anybody who loves somebody who's struggling with a substance use disorder. So they're an alternative to Al-Anon. So they created a support group called Invitation to Change. And what I love about Invitation to Change is that it's really a learning group with a supportive environment. So they have taken the best of craft, ACT, and motivational interviewing. So they took those three programs and then they pulled together the Invitation to Change. So they've got all of this like evidence-based tools in there. And when people go to the Invitation to Change meetings, yes, they get to talk about their loved one and what they're going through and watching their loved one struggle with substances, but they're learning tools at every single meeting. They're learning how to take care of themselves. They're learning positive communication skills, right? That's that motivational interviewing piece. Because a lot of people will shut down if you start asking them about their drinking, like, oh, I can't believe you drink again. And so the person who's struggling is going to shut down and then they're going to hide it. But if their family members, if their loved ones have more of this open communication that's with a non-judgmental approach, they're so much more likely to be, okay, I'm struggling again. I need your help. And it doesn't matter.
Mm,
It could be your kid, your spouse, whoever. These skills are applicable for everyone. So I actually went through their facilitator training, and I haven't led my own group yet, but I stay connected with the community because I am a facilitator. I get to go to 2 community meetings a month, and I've been seeing them grow and expand, and I love everything they're doing. And they're all about bringing families together. Whereas a lot of other programs out there really leave the family out, actually. And families are the biggest untapped resource when it comes to addiction, just overall. And it's such a shame that families are being left out because they want to help. They just don't have the skills. They just don't know. You don't know what you don't know. So when you start learning these skills and then you start having that shared residence, and then their nervous system starts to change. And then because we co-regulate with each other, our nervous systems are always reading each other, then it helps their loved one in so many positive ways. And then instead of trying to force change on their loved one is invited to change.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's amazing. So you have resources on your website, don't you? So how do people get in touch with you, Kristin? Yeah.
Yes. So my website is kristinhorstman.com, and you will see one of the tabs says resources. And when you click on it, it's free resources for loved ones and family members who have a loved one struggling with substances. So I love this page. This was like a passion project for me this past year because I started to just accumulate some really good, blog articles, podcast episodes. I love Heather Ross's podcast, by the way. She's a support coach, and she has a podcast about loving your child in addiction. And so I have links to her podcast, and she's an Invitation to Change facilitator. That's how I met her. So I've just got all these great resources for CMC, Foundation for Change, and their support groups. So if you go on my website, you will find books to read, articles to check out, podcasts to listen to, videos to watch, and real support groups that you can click on and find more about. So I love that page because I used to just send people like 20 links, and I thought, okay, we need a one-stop shopping. I need to house everything on one page. And I keep that page free because that page is for everybody. And yeah, so I love that page so much. And if people have resources, I want that to be an evolving page. I want to keep updating it. So if someone's like, this podcast would go great because it really speaks to the family piece and it was so helpful, send me the link. Let's get it on the page. Or if you have this lovely organization that helps the family piece, I want to find out. I want to keep learning about that side. So I love that page so much. And I've gotten positive feedback too. People have said, oh my gosh, because I went on your page, I clicked on this thing or this organization, and now I'm getting real help. And after years and years and years of watching my loved one struggle, I finally found real help. And I'm like, that's why I created the page.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's really, really great. Really great. And it's wonderful that you offer it for free as well, so that anyone can access it. Brilliant. Yep. Okay. And is there anything else that you wanted to talk about?
Yes. So another wonderful resource on my page is something I call events to brighten your life. So this is another free page that I just got this idea. There's so many wonderful events, and there's big sobriety events like Sober in the City, which I love so much. But also there's just so many people that I keep meeting, like yourself, that are creating these beautiful retreats, whether it's a retreat in a beautiful foreign place and it's a week thing, or maybe it's just a day workshop, maybe it's a yoga event. So to me, an event to brighten your life is an event that fosters connection, wellness, nervous system health, fun, all those things. And it just doesn't include alcohol. Because I realized over the years I was going to running groups that would drink after, or yoga and wine. And there's such a disconnect there. You're going to run, you're going to do yoga, and then you're going to drink after. It doesn't add up. So I want to keep sharing people who are doing wonderful events all over the world. It doesn't have to be in the United States. Like your wonderful retreat coming up in Bali. That's a perfect thing to put on my page. I want to tell everybody about Dupé's amazing retreat. So yeah, this way, if you come to my page and you're like, oh, what kind of events are going on? What are people doing out there? So that's another little passion project of mine. And it doesn't have to be designated a sober event, by the way. If you're just like a yoga teacher who loves to have yoga classes and there's just no alcohol in the picture and you're not necessarily like sober, like that's fine. Let's get that on the page too.
Yeah, I love it. I love the way you're giving back so much and just supporting everybody as well. So it's amazing. And I think one of the really important things is community and being able to do things at different events and meet people and connect with people who are like-minded, because that also just keeps you going. And so with the events, it just gives people ideas as to what they can do instead, which is fantastic. Well, Kristin,
Exactly.
it's been so lovely to speak to you. And gosh, you've got so much going on, and your story is amazing. And look how far you've come. And I know yesterday you were just celebrating 1600 days alcohol free, which is just fantastic. So, congratulations on that. And
Thank you so much.
so, at the end of every episode, I always ask, what does thriving alcohol free mean to you? So, I'd love to hear what you think.
Yeah, that's such a great question. When I wrote my post celebrating the 1600 days yesterday, one of the things I mentioned, we just had the most recent Sober in the City experience in Scottsdale.
Mm.
And then I said, we just did all these amazing things. We did yoga, Reiki, Mahjong. We had a pajama party, a sound bath. We had dinner. We dressed up. We danced. We enjoyed incredible mocktails and NA beverages. And none of that needed alcohol to make it better.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
just enjoying all the incredible things that life has to offer and just enjoying them for what they are and not needing alcohol. I mean, that's thriving.
Yeah, absolutely. Agreed. And
Yeah.
it is incredible how much fun you can have without realizing. And for so long, I was like, it must be boring. What do you do? How do you do it?
Yes,
And it's the
exactly.
complete opposite. So yeah, I
Yeah.
love that
Yeah.
answer. Thank you so much. You've also
Yeah.
got your Instagram page. So how do people get in touch with you on Instagram? And are there any other details you
Yeah.
want to share?
Sure. My page is Coach Kristin Horstman. So yeah, I keep my Instagram super fun. I say that it's nervous system friendly because I don't get polarizing or political or anything like that. It's just like a happy place to come. Because when you're on my page, I want you to feel good and I want you to just laugh and smile and learn some things too, where I'll put up videos on my page where I'm teaching some nervous system tools. For example, I have a great little video where I demonstrate how to use an acupressure ring, which is just a lovely little tool that I share with my clients. And it's just something that was really helpful for me when I was a client. And to this day, I still keep these little handy things around. And it's a lot of fun. So come and like my page and come along for that ride with me, and we'll have a lot of fun. And I always just thank people for following my journey. People are taking this journey with me. And it's so lovely to have with my friends and family or acquaintances, whoever's following me on Instagram. And I just want to thank them always because, if you're taking the time to like see what I'm doing, it's a big deal to me. And I always let people know that I'm rooting for them, which is really important to
Mm.
me too.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for being a fabulous guest. And
Thank you so much.
I look forward to our next conversation. See you
Yes.
soon.
Yes. Thanks. Thank you so much, Yupe.
Well, thank you, Kristin. What a wonderful conversation. And thank you for sharing your story so deeply and all the tools that you have and everything you're doing. It's amazing. And I know you're helping lots and lots of families and individuals along the way. And so, really appreciate you being on the podcast. I hope you enjoyed that episode. I hope you have the most wonderful week. And as I said, only a week to go till Bali and Finding Freedom Retreat. So if that's something you're interested in, then go and grab it. The other thing I wanted to mention is that on the 2nd of June, I am hosting a free masterclass as well. So if you would like to come on Zoom and watch this and be on this free live masterclass. It's a human design masterclass. We're going to be delving into human design and lots of other things as well. But I think it's going to be really helpful for you, and it's going to be lots of fun as well. So I'd love to see you there. So if you want to join the masterclass, then feel free to click on the link below and you can save your spot. And I can't wait to see you there. Have the most wonderful week. As I said, this time next week, I will be in Bali. There will be an episode out, and look out for some of the posts along the way. And as I said, I'll do an episode on the Bali retreat, I'm sure, relatively soon after we get back. So look out for that. Anyway, I hope you found this episode helpful, and wherever you are on your journey, you are in exactly the right place. You are doing exactly what you need to do. And things will start to happen. And I believe in you, and I will see you on the next episode. Take care. Thank you so much for listening to the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe so you get alerted every time I drop a new episode. I'd love it if you could rate, review, and share this episode. feel free to tag me on Instagram at Thrive Alcohol Free and follow me for daily tips. If you would like to work with me, I offer one-to-one coaching sessions and have my group coaching program. If you're not yet ready for coaching, I also have a self-paced online course, which is a companion to my book, A Cocktail of Clarity. All the links are in the show notes. I will see you in the next episode. Have a wonderful week. Take care.